Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live at 5. It's June 4th. It's Monday.
It is.
I'm Beth Stevens.
And I'm Ryan Lee Gilbert.
And we are here with the one and only Caitlin Moynihan.
Hello.
With some jazz hands. We have a fabulous guest today.
We do. Chukwudi Iwuji is joining us in just a little bit. Joining you. I won't be in the scene anymore.
Just me.
Yes. But he's going to talk to us about Shakespeare in the Park. And
Othello.
Othello. Great stuff. But first,
our top 5.
So the Tony Awards are coming up, but we still had one more left beforehand.
yeah, there's a big award show at the end of this week. Did you know that?
What?
I had no clue.
I feel like it already happened.
Right? No,
We've been talking about it for so long. But there was another awards show
yeah,
last
so the
night.
Drama Desk Awards were last night. And the big winners of the evening were Ethan Slater for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Musical for SpongeBob SquarePants, of course. Jesse Mueller for Carousel. Gavin Lee, Outstanding Featured Actor in a Musical for SpongeBob SquarePants. Lindsay Mendez for Carousel. They love SpongeBob and Carousel.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
But this also honors off-Broadway and
But it does as well.
Just
so
saying.
a good example is Joshua Harmon's play Admissions, which
Great
played
show.
off-Broadway, won
Lincoln Center.
Outstanding New Play, and Angels in America, Outstanding Revival, SpongeBob for Outstanding Musical, and My Fair Lady for Outstanding Revival of a Musical. Big winner was SpongeBob with 6 awards, and it was hosted by Michael Urie last night. And we have all sorts of, I mean, there's
Cute
the news,
pictures.
but you can see pictures, and I think you can watch their speeches that they gave if
You can indulge in the
know how
drama
to
desk,
do this.
but if you don't know already, I
Yeah.
feel like you're not really paying
But yeah,
attention.
congrats to all of the winners, and
Yay.
rooting for you.
Amazing. And we have an Israeli superstar coming and showing us all that jazz.
More jazz hands from Caitlin.
Yes.
I'm very
It's a
impressed
theme.
on a Monday.
It's a theme.
Shidi Maimon,
Shidi Maimon, that's right.
Israeli superstar. I've been YouTubing her.
She was like on their version of X Factor,
gorgeous,
right? Yeah.
and she's got a beautiful voice. And she was an X Factor Israel judge.
Oh, I see.
Be
Judge.
clear about
Okay.
that. She's gonna make her Broadway debut as Roxy Hart.
Ah,
I mean, if you're gonna make your Broadway debut, you may as well start
absolutely.
with a
She's going to be
splash.
our next door neighbor.
Yeah, yes, our headquarters is next door to the Ambassador Theater. She's coming in September 21st through October 5th. Charlotte Amboise is there now.
Mm-hmm.
And, let me just tell you about, she does have some legit stuff. So
Yeah.
she played Evita in Evita.
That's pretty legit.
And she earned the Best Actress honor at the Israeli Theater Awards, but you didn't know that was a
Oh,
thing.
look at that.
Kind of like the Drama Desk.
Yeah,
but
but
in Israel.
Israel.
There you go.
Award-winning. Fantastic.
And you have one more chance to see Three Tall Women.
Yeah, talk about a hot ticket. We need to give every opportunity for people to go see Three Tall Women. They had the midnight showing, which for a lot of industry people, other actors,
Wear your
they got to
PJs.
go. Exactly. So yes, Three Tall Women. It is still scheduled to close June 24th at the Golden Theater, but instead of the matinee performance being the final one, they will do a 7 o'clock evening performance. So
Keep the party going. It's
keep
not really
the
a party.
going.
At Three Tall Women.
It's not very
really,
much, no.
but it's a stunning production.
It's incredible. Obviously, Glenda Jackson, Laurie Metcalf, Allison Pill. Go see it at the Golden Theater. Nominated for 6 Tony Awards, right? Do I have
Wow.
that right? 6
Yep.
Tony nominations, yeah. So now you have one extra performance to get in there if you haven't yet. And if you haven't yet, you should try to do
go
so
see it.
because it's
Excuses.
incredible.
And we had a Broadway wedding over the weekend.
Oh, you're so excited.
am. I love
Love
weddings.
a wedding.
bells
I
are
love love.
ringing.
Okay, Emily
the
Paget and
season.
Josh Young tied the knot.
They
These
did.
are two of our own.
They're adorable.
They're so
the
cute.
best, yeah.
So they got married on June 3rd. Emily's last Broadway credit was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but she was also our vlogger when she was
That's
in Rock
right.
of Ages.
Heck
She was also in Bright Star, Sideshow, Legally Blonde. She's been in a lot of shows, and Josh was Tony nominated for
Yeah.
playing Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar a few years ago. And they got engaged in January 2017, so a long engagement.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that
But
nice?
now they're official.
Very nice. Do you think
Yes,
they're going to go to the Tonys for their honeymoon?
Oh, what a, yeah, I hope they do something a little bit more exotic afterward. Yeah, but you do what you got to
It's
do. What you got to
relaxing,
do.
the Tony
Yeah,
Awards.
exactly.
Do what you got to do. And Ethan Slater is getting honored and proving yet again he's not just a simple sponge.
Yeah, look, well done, Caitlin. Yes,
you.
Ethan Slater is just picking up awards and honors. In addition to his Drama Desk Award last night, he also won the Outer Critics in the theater world. But now he picked up the Broadway Beacon Award. The Broadway Beacon Award is an arts education nonprofit. It helps public school kids get access to theater. They've been around since 1982, and it is presented to individuals in the theater community who have been advocates for increasing audiences for the live theater and understanding the importance of arts and education in the lives of New York City's young people. The very first recipient ever, 1995, Carol Channing.
Wow.
And now, Ethan Slater,
Thank you for that tidbit.
our
Right?
Broadway Beacon Award winner. Congratulations, sir. The gala will take place on June 25th at 5:30 p.m.
Because there's always another party
Because
to go
there's
to.
exactly. Let's just keep extending. But yes, that's it. That's it
All
for me.
right.
It's all the news.
Thank
that
you
I've
for your
got.
service,
You know
Ryan
what?
Lee
It was
Gilbert.
my pleasure.
Miss Caitlin, will you tell us a little bit about our guest, Chukwudi Iwuji?
Of course. Chukwudi is currently starring in Shakespeare in the Parks, Othello, and he recently won an Obie Award for his performance in the Public Theater's The Low Road. His past theater credits include King Lear, Hamlet, and Henry VI trilogy. He has been on screen multiple times, including John Wick Chapter 2, Quantico, The Split, Doctor Who, and Madam Secretary. He's done it all. Be sure to leave your questions in the comments below. Welcome, Beth and Chukwudi.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Beth. How are
Thank
you?
you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
After taking time out from doing Othello, which is not an easy show.
It's a walk in the park. Ha ha.
Oh.
Do-do-sh.
I'm appreciative of time. I'm appreciative of time. How's it going over there in the park, the Delacorte?
It's amazing. It's just, I mean, it's the singular most. It's such a unique space to play in, and we've had
Well, you have
actually
raccoons,
the
yes.
last the raccoons actually on
They're
our
famous.
first preview. I was about to make an entrance with Casio,
Mm-hmm.
and just as we're walking in, a raccoon just casually strolled across the stage. And walked, and the whole audience
the
watched it
audience-
and laughed. And I just,
Did
me
you
and
react?
Casio came on and just watched it go, and then I applauded it, and
Oh.
1,800 people applauded the raccoon too.
Just
So you
scared
gotta
enough
start,
to
gotta. So yeah, no, it's going really wonderfully. It's an amazing production that Ruben's put together.
So Ruben Santiago Hudson
Ruben
is
Santiago
directing it.
Hudson, yeah.
Is this his first time directing in the park?
It's his first time directing
But
in
not
the park.
your first time in the park.
No, it's my second. It's
You
my
were in King
second.
Lear.
I did King Lear, yes. I wore a lot less clothes in that one.
Go on.
Well, I played Edgar,
Yes,
you know,
I
it was
know.
4 times, so that was a lot of mud and bare skin.
So what is Ruben's take on this classic play?
Ruben it's one, when we sat down to talk about the play, one of the things we both agreed on was that we needed to make sure we brought it back to the love story.
So Othello and Desdemona.
Othello and Desdemona, and the fact that the other title for this could be the greatest love story that never happened. You know, and in doing that, it just enriches the play. It raises the stakes. It gives a wonderful, I can say it now because I'm not playing him, but villainous character like Iago a real obstacle, which is to break that real connection. And
Because a lot of people say this is a play about jealousy, so it's interesting to bring it to what
Yeah.
precedes jealousy, which is love.
no, I think it is a play about love. I think love is mentioned more than any other word in the
Oh,
play.
okay.
I think the flip side, the dark side of love can be jealousy. I mean, you can't have one without the other. And by making it about jealousy, we're going right to the end of the play. You
Right,
know,
right.
when actually we have this wonderful couple, not many, but a couple of amazing setups to establish this incredible relationship that people just wouldn't let happen.
Have you ever played Othello before?
I did.
You did.
I did, but I don't remember, and that's probably a good thing because
You don't remember? Were you hit on the head?
No. I actually think my what do you call it? My ego, the good one that protects you, your id or whatever,
yes, okay.
is protecting me because it must have been quite shocking. I was 20 in college.
I
Do you know what I
thought you
mean?
were younger than that. You did it in college.
I didn't.
Okay.
It was the last show I did at Yale undergrad, and I really can't remember. I remember it was probably a good production because we were sold out. And Owen Hughes, I remember Owen, my director, was very pleased with it, but I can't remember anything I did in it.
So we don't know if you're repeating anything. You're just gonna.
I
move
never
forward.
repeat, Beth.
Never. Why would I say that? What am I even saying? Let's tell people a little bit about your trajectory into being an actor. It's an interesting story because you didn't start out as an actor originally.
No, I.
Well, you were Joseph in
I
school,
was.
right?
Oh
Middle
my
school.
God,
No, I do
good,
my research.
amazing
people.
research. Wow.
So
yeah.
let's tell people about when you got interested in this.
I used to act as a kid in Nigeria, so I was what you call not a child actor because I wasn't homeschooled or any. I went to regular school, but I did a lot of plays and I was on TV in Nigeria. Then I didn't really touch it. Then I went to Ethiopia. My parents joined the United Nations, my dad and mom, and in my school there I did a couple of nativity plays and I was Joseph. And that was the last time I acted, because I went to boarding school in England, and there were two groups of students. There were the athletes, the cool group, and the artists, the misunderstood group. So I hung out with the cool group, but I always had an eye on the plays. I would always go watch the plays, and I always used to it was in boarding school, because my parents moved around, so boarding school was my base. I'd always get into trouble for, after lights out, sneaking into the TV room and like watching TV and watching the Oscars, which would be televised around midnight our time. You know, I'd get caught often, but I didn't mind it. So although I wouldn't say I decided I wanted to be an actor, there was a side of me that was really intrigued. And I remember even as a kid watching TV and films with a different sort of eye. And my games I played, usually in solitude, I liked being on my own, would be to reenact certain scenes and stuff.
Oh.
So there was a side of me subconsciously that wanted to do it. But I won't say, and the decision to move to America was because not necessarily because I wanted to get into the movies or into the theater or anything, but because of the options that were open to me, doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever, none of them really worked. So I needed more options, you know? So
Land of opportunity.
Land of opportunity, and also 2 years of liberal arts.
There you go.
Which is a fabulous thing. So I did that, but it was while I was at Yale doing economics. I did a production of Jean-Anne Louise Beckett, and
That's not normal for most economic majors.
No, it's not. But at Yale, a lot of people do the
They're
theater
artsy.
thing. They do a lot of that stuff. So it was when I did that, head of undergraduate drama saw the play, and he was about to become artistic director at the conservatory in Milwaukee. And I went into his office because I thought he just wanted to say congratulations, and he offered me a full scholarship. And that's
Wow.
sort of how it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were set on your path.
I was. I finished my economics because I always like to finish what I start, but that's
Your
the
heart
day.
wasn't in it.
Yeah.
You had to go off to the Royal Shakespeare
I had to
Company.
go and get broke instead of
broke.
like, yeah,
Well,
graduate.
you're a true Shakespearean actor. You've done a lot of shows at the Public.
Yeah.
Played Hamlet at
Yeah.
the Mobile Shakespeare Unit. And obviously we mentioned King Lear. Tell me how you approach a Shakespeare text. I know they're all different, but there's something really, a lot of people are really intimidated by Shakespeare.
Absolutely. It's weird because, you know, it's English.
Some people speak that language.
Yeah.
Some of us speak American now.
But I understand because there's a lot of, first of all, it's I think after the Bible is the most written thing, more
Most
books are
read.
written about Shakespeare than after
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So it's become very academic, and it's become more intimidating. And the way it's often been seen, especially here in this country, you look across the pond to the Brits who do it, quote unquote, properly, and we don't. You know, there's a real
yes.
stigma about it. So you either have uber reverence from it, which freezes you from actually launching yourself into it, or this emphasis on trying to deconstruct it and make it fresh and new, which can lead you down another blind alley. I think it's very accessible. I think people just need to, often it's how it's taught in schools, like most things, is how you're introduced to stuff. And over there or over here, often Shakespeare is introduced as this other thing you study, often done by reading a few chapters, boring yourself to death and finding a cure for insomnia, and not actually the dynamic human stories that they are. Because when you break it down, I mean, I did the mobile unit, like you said. I went into a prison doing Hamlet with no dumbing down of the language, no adding stuff, playing it as written. And I'm there doing to be or not to be. And I look across and there's a guy in Rikers, you know, just looking at me and just going, don't do it. And
Totally
then in a
emotionally involved.
I was in a women's shelter and I started the speech to be or not to be, and a homeless woman went, that is the question. I mean, she went to. We all know it. We all understand this. It's in us. Even the pulse of the iambic pentameter, which sounds so academic, but the way he writes is how actually our normal heart rate and they dump. So it's so steeped in us. But I think it's how we're introduced to it. It's been made this other thing when actually it's the most human of all writing, I believe. You know.
Wow. I can see why you're so good at this.
Yeah. Wow.
So tell me about working with Corey Stoll.
Corey's awesome. He's awesome.
We saw him last year in Julius Caesar
Julius
in the
Caesar.
park.
He's a real pro. He has an incredible enthusiasm for the work. He's a very generous actor, and he's very good. And
This is the nicest thing you've ever said about Iago.
I know, but it can only work from knowing the whole play and not thinking of it as your play,
Right,
you know.
yes.
And so Corey has been one. We share a dressing room. We share stories. You know, and he has a real appreciation, and he loves New York.
That's helpful.
You know, he loves.
Because if you're going to do Shakespeare in the Park, you're going to meet
He
the masses.
really does. For him, it's something that he really looks forward to. He's done it 3 years in a row now, which requires an amazing stamina. But I do like working with him because he has an incredible playfulness in the rehearsal room, which is so refreshing, you know.
So congratulations on your Obie Award.
Thank you.
For The Low Road. So this is not Shakespeare, but almost Shakespearean in its epic scope.
In its scope, yeah.
This is Bruce North's play that was a revival done at the Public earlier this year.
Yeah.
How did it feel to get recognized for that?
You know, it's been great this whole season because, I won the Obie, but nominated for the L'Hotel and the Drama League. And I just, it's weird because that was one of those roles where when I read, I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. I get this guy. Do you know what I mean? I didn't strive for the role. And then, of course, Bruce wrote the most extraordinary play. I mean, I wasn't sure I wanted to go straight to play because when I first got it, I'd done back-to-back shows, with Eva Van Hove. So I'd done a lot of and at that time I was filming and actually enjoying the lifestyle of filming. I'm getting paid a lot more for not so much. But then this play arrived, and I remember finally getting home at about midnight and saying, okay, let me give it a quick read, thinking I'll read a few pages. And 3 hours later, I was laughing. First call I made the next morning was to my agent and say, I think I want to do this. It's that good. And Michael Greif.
Michael Greif, is known for musicals, but this had such a big cast. He had to sort of move the cast around almost like a musical or Shakespearean.
The orchestration of that piece, especially in the Ansbacher that doesn't have much backstage. I mean, I would come into it because I came into rehearsal a bit late. I had to do something else that clashed for like a week. So I came in the second week, more or less. And I sat there going, why is he so fixated on who takes that chair when and why is that and then you get into the space and you see how what reads as a 3-hour play, it really on paper should be 3 hours, we were doing in 2:25 or whatever that is.
People are playing at multiple roles and just
but
juggling.
The way he moved it, and it was just so fluid and beautiful, and he's a real genius in that. So the company, Kevin Chamberlain and Harriet Harris. I mean Daniel Davis. I mean, those guys are all Chris Buffetti, just pros. A wonderful group of people. And I remember going home after my first and saying to my fiance, I'm a bit scared. She says, why? I said, they're all they're clowns. And I don't know if I can be funny, because they were so hilarious, So luckily I was sort of like the straight man funny, so that
So
helped.
we're going to get to your questions because I know that you have them. Oh, we have a lot of them.
No, we we got.
Oh, okay, well, maybe we'll just
we
get
got
to them
cues.
right now then. All right, well, forget what I was going to say. We're going to go to your questions.
So Elise wants to know, what is the most challenging part about performing in a park compared to performing in a theater?
The elements, you just don't know what's going to come at you. It's also the helicopters on their way to the Hamptons. I mentioned the raccoon that went across. We've had our last 2 shows, we've had rain. And when that happens, you try to stay there for as long as you can, then you have to stop. So, but at the same time, it's also what's most magical about it because, there's, this isn't a spoiler. Everyone knows what happens in Othello. And there's something incredible about when Desdemona's dead in my arms and actually seeing 2, not characters, but 2 actors in the rain.
Yeah.
With the one dead. And you're in the rain and you're watching it. And it's almost like nature is giving you its own version of tears. Do you know what I mean? Wow. And the wind was blowing the trees behind.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So there's certain things that it's weird because the same things that getting your way, quote unquote, nature, or like the heat the other day. But what an amazing thing to watch a couple of actors sweating through a scene and going, So I would say it informs you in a different way. So I think the very things that are challenges are also gifts.
What was the first Shakespeare in the Park that you saw?
What You Do About Nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the same year I did it.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, 2014, yeah. I'd only really moved to New York from London end of 2012, so I hadn't been around that long.
Shakespeare in the Park is sort of famous throughout the world.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was never here in the summers, When I was in university, I'd go back to London or wherever for the summers and stuff. I don't wait. I don't do
We have another way.
I have another way. I have an insight.
I think that you can really appreciate that the people who come to see Shakespeare in the Park got up early in the morning, waited in line, some of them.
When you walk up to the theater and you see that line of people waiting, whatever fatigue, whatever else is going on in your life, and you think these people are waiting to see me and they've been there all morning. I mean, it gives you a level of humility and excitement that's quite incredible.
Shakespeare. They're gonna get up early for it. I'm sorry, what are the other questions, Caitlin?
Some people want to know if you were intentional in taking all these Shakespearean plays.
No, I didn't become an actor. I'd be lying to you if I said I became an actor to do as much, not just Shakespeare, but theater as I did. Growing up, I grew up on movies and TV and all that stuff. Shakespeare was purely, in many ways, accidental for me in that I got to drama school. Well, I got offered it at Yale, but it was in drama school that suddenly people started gravitating towards me to play Shakespeare. And I was never intimidated by it. I always found I don't get why. There was a lot of stuff to learn. There was skill sets to learn, but I was never intimidated by it. And I said, I don't get why you can't read this and get excited by it. I remember studying Antony and Cleopatra when I was in high school in England and going, I can't wait till I'm old enough to play Antony. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. While my friend, I'm just going, oh my God, why can't you see this? Yeah. I only like the meaty ones. Don't do comedy.
All right, we can take one more question, then we have to go.
Yeah, they want to know which Shakespeare character has been the most complicated for you to portray.
By far, Othello.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In many ways,
Even
I thought it
after
would be
Hamlet.
Hamlet. You see, Hamlet, I don't think is complicated. I think Hamlet has everything and is so rich and you can keep going. But it's very clear for me where it was. Othello is harder to grasp and also doesn't have any escape valves. Hamlet will take you to these amazing peaks, and then you have a chance to talk to the audience and explain what you're going through, which is what makes it so rich, because he really dealt. Othello doesn't have that option. He doesn't really talk to the audience, in my opinion, or when he does, it's not to say, this is how I'm feeling, So I find it very challenging to play a character that stays at such a pitch, basically from Act 3 to Act 5. But it's such a joy. Yeah.
Thank you for coming in, Chukwudi.
Thank you.
It was really nice
It's a
talking
real
to
pleasure.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Othello is playing at the Delacorte Theater through when?
Through June 24th.
So go see it. Don't miss it. That's a New York experience. Caitlin, please take us out.
Sure. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Live at 5. We are live at 5 on Facebook every single day. Right after this, the podcast version of today's episode will be up, so make sure to listen to that. And make sure to tune in tomorrow when we have Mean Girls standout Cheech Manahar with us.